him on in. Okay, well, we can get started here. Just want to kind of have an informational meeting about the Ohio Edu-Care program. I'm going to keep it pretty informal. If you have questions as we go along, holler or save it for the end. We'll make sure and have time for questions at the end. My qualifications for presenting tonight are bulletproof. They are, Melvin's not around, so I'm presenting. I assume you're all aware to some degree of what Ohio Edu-Care is. I'm just going to go through kind of what it is, how it works, how does it benefit the different parties involved, the donors, the school, the patrons of the school, and then how do you donate? So first, what is Ohio Edu-Care? In 2021, Ohio passed legislation that provided for establishing what they call scholarship granting organizations, or SGOs. And those scholarship granting organizations are nonprofits or 501c3s, and they are designed, what they're for is for them to accept donations from people and then distribute those donations to schools who have enrolled in the program. So our school is enrolled in the program. We did that paperwork. We're one of the schools that can accept donations. And there is lots of those scholarship granting organizations around Ohio. And the website, I think it looks like there's something like 180 some of those organizations. Ohio Edu-Care was formed by Anabaptist people, and that's the schools that they're serving. I don't know who all is involved. I know Larry Troyer from Holmes County. Some of you may know that name. He was CFO, I think, of Proviador, and CPA down in Plain City. Thaddeus Eichhorn is a couple people that were involved. So that's what Ohio Edu-Care is. It's one of these SGOs that are set up to take donations in and then distribute it to schools. But there's rules for how that works. So how does the process work? I was just going to kind of draw it on the board just because visual is easier. So a person makes a donation to Ohio Edu-Care. It's a really simple illustration, but so Ohio Edu-Care is one of the many SGOs, Ohio Edu-Care, and people, anybody can make a donation to Ohio Edu-Care. Anybody can make a donation to that. When you make a donation, you specify who you want that donation to go to. So when you have to fill out the paper form or online, you say, I want this money to go to Eli Mennonite School. In our case, if you don't specify, if you just donate, you can donate to just the cause as a whole, and it'll just get distributed to all the schools. But obviously, most people that are donating are wanting to donate to a specific school. So now Ohio Edu-Care has that money. Everything that comes in before March 31, there's a March 31 deadline. Everything that comes in before March 31 is available to use the following school year. You don't have to do all your paperwork in between. So they have the money. In this case, the paper you picked up, you'll say we have $25,000 available to us. That was roughly $10,000 last year and $15,000 So after that March 31st deadline, then Ohio Edu-Care sends us a letter that says you have this much money available for scholarships. After that, which is where we're at the counter right now, Ohio Edu-Care lets us know how much money we have, and the school lets the patrons know this is the money that we have available for scholarships, and it will be divided up according to everybody that accepts the scholarship. And once everybody has selected what level of scholarship they want, then the money is distributed to the school. Let me say this right. We let Ohio Edu-Care know how we're going to distribute the money. So we give them a roster of all the students and say, we're requesting this money for this student, this student, this student, this student. And then they send that money to the school. At that point, the school, which is EMS, has that money, and that gets applied towards tuition according to the scholarship that you selected. So that's just, it goes from the donors to Ohio Edu-Care. Once you specify how you want it distributed, then they give it to you. I'll go through that process a little more. Okay. So we let you as patrons know there's this much money available, and you select, I want level 1 or level 2 or opt out. Level 1 is available to everyone. Everyone can get scholarship money. Level 2, you have to meet the guidelines for the income requirements on the paper you picked up on the way in. According to your household size, your adjusted gross income for, say, a household of 4 needs to be $93,600 or less to qualify for level 2. So we're not verifying on your tax records that you qualify for that. We're taking your word for it that yes, you qualify, and we're giving you the scholarship. Now, in the event of an audit of Ohio Edu-Care, you will have to provide proof of your income. You have to provide a tax return, but that would go to Ohio Edu-Care. It would not go to your local school board. Nobody locally is seeing your tax return. But if you do opt for the level 2 scholarship, you do agree to provide those financial records in the event of an audit. And the reason for the 2 different levels is this program requires that you give preference to people that have an income of less than 300% of the national poverty level, which is what these numbers are. Those adjusted gross income numbers that you see on that qualification chart there, that's just simply 300%, 3 times the national poverty level. So everybody can get it, but you give preference, which in this case, we're giving a higher scholarship amount to people that meet that income qualification. So once we get these forms back we have to get one of these forms back from each of our patrons. I was hoping we would have a lot more patrons here tonight so we could get more of these back soon. But anyhow, once we get those forms back from everybody opting for a level 1, a level 2, or opting out, then we put it into a spreadsheet that calculates how much you're getting, and we send that to Ohio Edu-Care, and they send us our funds. And that is another specification of this program. It has to go towards tuition. It is specifically scholarship funds going towards tuition, that they're very specific about what it's for. and then that scholarship that you select will simply be a deduction on your invoice that you get for tuition. One thing to notice in that process, the money does not go to the state. So when you make a donation to Ohio Edu-Care, the money does not go to the state, and the state sends you a check. When you make that donation gives you a tax credit, but the state does not take the funds in and then send it back out. That's a very important distinction for me, I think a lot of people, is that we are not receiving money from the state. I would be considerably less comfortable with the program, even if it was money that people would send into the state and they're giving back. Could you still say you're not receiving funding from the state? It would be a little dicier. So that is how the program works. So what is the benefit to a donor, someone who's donating to Ohio Edu-Care, earmarking it for our school? What's the benefit to them? The benefit to them over giving directly to the school, the question could be asked is, why wouldn't they just give the money to the school? The benefit over giving money directly to the school is that this money is a tax credit against your Ohio taxes, not a tax deduction. Like, it doesn't lower your income, your taxable income. It comes directly, dollar for dollar, off of your Ohio taxes. It is a limit of $750 per person, $1,500 married filing jointly. That's the limit of what you can, of the tax credit you can take. But that's the benefit of doing this method, is that it is a tax credit, not a tax deduction, which is a big difference. What about someone who would not otherwise be donating to our school? You know, your grandparents, anybody that would not necessarily be donating to our school. What's the benefit to them? There's not a financial benefit to them. They are making a donation, getting a tax deduction for that amount, but it is money going to fund Christian education as opposed to money going to the state. So the benefit in that case is them knowing what their money's being used for, but it's not a dollar benefit to them. And one thing with it being a tax credit, it's kind of obvious, but I wanted to just make sure that it was clear, is that it only benefits you financially if you have an Ohio income tax liability. So if you don't have an Ohio income tax liability, there's nothing to credit. So just to be clear. Now, that donation is still to a 501c3, so you can get a deduction on your federal taxes just like any other contribution you make to a charitable organization, but a deduction is obviously not as helpful as a credit. So what are the benefits to and the effects on the school? The benefit for the school is very clear. It's money that we would not have received otherwise. It's money that was essentially diverted rather than going to Ohio state taxes. It comes to the school. The $25,000 we have in the fund now that's available for scholarships is money that we would not have gotten otherwise. So it's a rather significant benefit to the school. As I said, the money is specifically designated for scholarships to help with tuition. So one change that will be for members of our church is that there will be a tuition for everyone now, not just people that are not members of our church. So there will be a tuition for members, and then the tuition for non-members will go up that same amount. The tuition for this year for members is $800, and that will also include your book bill. There will no longer be book bills specifically tied to how many books you did in that quarter. Book bills will be included in that tuition. So there won't be a separate book bill portion of your invoice. And that $800 is roughly equivalent to what an average book bill would be, plus the scholarship money that is available this year. It's not exact, but that's roughly what it is. So if you take the scholarship and take into account an average book bill, the tuition for members, or the increase to the tuition to non-members, is roughly equal to that. And that tuition will change year to year, up or down, depending on what funds we have available from Ohio Edu-Care. The other thing that will be a change that will be, I think, will make things a little easier, is not having a book bill as part of the invoice. Means we'll be able to bill at the beginning of a quarter instead of the end of the quarter. That doesn't really change anything for the first 3 quarters, but the last quarter, you can send your check to school with your children like you do all the other quarters, instead of mailing it or getting it to the treasurer during the summer some way. So that will make the end of the quarter less stressful for teachers, make getting their stuff jammed in, and the treasurer to crank invoices out. It's a really short window to get stuff turned around. So that will help a lot with that, and it will also allow you to send all of your checks with your children to school. It is a fair amount of work for the treasurer. They have to get these forms out to everybody. They have to fill out the spreadsheet that divides the scholarship funds up, submit that to Ohio Edu-Care. You have to enter that scholarship on the invoices and so on. Like I said, it's a significant amount of money, so it's worth some legwork. One thing it does not change is that our primary funding model for the school is still free will offerings. The tuition is a pretty nominal tuition for our members, so the bulk of our funding is still going to need to come from free will offerings. So if you just reduce your giving by the scholarship amount, we did a lot of paperwork for not much benefit to the school. So just keep it in mind that our funding is still primarily free will offerings. What are the benefits to and effects on the patrons of the school? It's there's 3 different groups here: the people that donate, the school itself, and then the patrons of the school. The biggest changes for members, as I said, there will be a tuition which there wasn't before. The tuition bills coming at the beginning of the quarter. Talked about that already. And probably the main benefit to all the patrons is helping control the tuition cost for everyone. Our non-member tuition is based on 2/3 of the cost per student, I think for the 3 previous year, and that's worked so far. It's been a financial model that's worked. Our hope is that all of our fundraising efforts, including this program, will allow us to continue to offer tuition at a rate below cost like that. And so that's kind of the benefit to everyone. The average cost per student for this school year that just finished, the fiscal year isn't quite over, but the average cost per student this year was $4,350. So controlling how much tuition we have to charge is the most significant benefit to this additional funding for the school. And this program does have the potential to be a significant contribution to the school funding. We got $15,000 this year, which was the 2nd year that we've been part of the program, And that's only 10 people contributing the maximum. So I think there's potential for it to really benefit the school rather significantly. So then the next question is, how do you donate? The donating is amazingly simple. It seems like people that designed that website actually were trying to make it simple as opposed to a lot of websites. It's online at ohioeducare.org. There's also paper forms. But the online website, you don't have to set up an account. I don't think there's 3 other websites in the world that you don't start by setting up an account with your email and da-da-da-da. So it's extremely simple. You go on that website, click donate, you select the school that you want to go to, and you enter your name, address, payment information, and email, and that's it. And you send your donation, a receipt is emailed to you, you save that to give to your tax preparer for that Ohio tax credit, and you're done. The paper form, which I have, you can take with you, is just as simple. It specifies on top what school it's for, Elida Mennonite School. You check, I would like to support Elida Mennonite School, or funds to be used where most needed, and that would just go to all the schools in the whole system. And then again, name and address, fill a check out, send it in, and then they wait till after the end of the year. If you mail it in, they send you a receipt for all your donations for the year, because you can send in multiple small donations. So the donating is very simple. They've streamlined that process really significantly. So just as a conclusion, a wrap up, this was put in place out of the benevolence of our state government. I don't know what motivated putting it in place, but the same people that put it in place can take it away. They can end the program at any time. Obviously, the state of Ohio has a rather significant investment in getting the infrastructure for this together, so they're not likely to soon. But it can go away at any time, and so we don't want to become dependent on it, but it does have the opportunity to be a real blessing to us while it is available. Let others know about the opportunity to give. If there's people that you think would be interested, let people know. It is a tax credit, so you're not begging for a freebie from them. It's an opportunity for them to divert their tax money to a cause that hopefully they are sympathetic with. The last thing, I was going to just go over this form that you picked up. Does everybody have one of these forms? You can read over it at your leisure. The first bullet point, all patrons may opt in for level 1 scholarship. Like I said, everybody is eligible for a level 1 scholarship. Level 2 scholarships are available for those who meet the household income criteria. Like I talked about, that criteria is determined by the state of Ohio, which is 3 times national poverty level. Scholarship amounts will be adjusted annually. And then you look at your household size. So for example, I have 4 children, a wife and myself, so I have a household size of 6. So to be eligible for a level 2 scholarship, my adjusted gross income needs to be less than $125,880. It says we have $25,000. That's a combination of last year and this year, which is an average of about $385 per student. I believe the intent is that level 2 scholarships will be approximately 50% higher than level 1, and that is to meet the state's guidelines that you give preference to people who meet these guidelines. So it's about $385 per student, but depending on how many select option 1 or level 1 or level 2 or decide to opt out will depend on how much the scholarship is for each student. And then, like I said, that will just come off of your invoice of your tuition. And one thing want to be clear about is by selecting level 1 or opting out, that is not you saying anything. We're not making assumptions about your financial income or position. There's a lot of reasons that people may, they may say, I want other people to benefit from this, and I'm just going to take level 1, or I'm going to opt out. There's a lot of reasons. It's there and available, but and those will all go to the treasurer, which is Albert, starting this year, and he'll fill out that spreadsheet and it'll get sent into Ohio Edu-Care. And I already mentioned that if you select level 2, you are saying that you're willing to give your financial records to Ohio Edu-Care. Does anybody have any questions about any of this? I think that's pretty well the information I had to give. It's pretty straightforward, but there's kind of a lot of elements to it. There is a deadline of June 30 to get this form filled out and back, and that's because the school has a deadline to get the information into Ohio Edu-Care so that we can get the money this year. Otherwise, they earn interest on our $25,000 for another year. So. Does any of the board have anything to add to what was given today? Miss anything that was on the paper? Interestingly, the SGO does not have to be based in Ohio. There was one in the list that is in Pennsylvania, but they must have people in Ohio that are willing to contribute to them. So they're over in Ohio, they're over in Pennsylvania, sucking tax dollars out of Ohio. So they're winning big time. Yeah, that's actually how we initially heard about it, someone came to us and said, hey, someone's asking me to contribute my tax dollars to their school. It would be kind of nice if our school could get that money, since, you know, I'm part of this school. I would rather it go to our school. And that was a couple years ago, I think, and originally that was when Ohio Edu-Care was very newly formed. So I went online looking for them. They didn't have anything online. I was hunting and pecking all over the place, and finally found that guy down in Plain City that answered his phone, and he gave me a phone number of someone else, and now they have a nice website, and it's very easy to find, but a couple years ago they was very new. Okay, well, don't need to hold you longer. If you want to fill out this form tonight and turn it in, you can just stick it in Albert's mailbox. It's great. If not, it needs to be back by June 30, and so we're going to have to do some footwork to get it to a lot of people that aren't here tonight, but it's a pretty short window. Going forward, we'll have a bigger window because we got that letter from them. I'm not sure. I think we got that letter probably the first part of May, maybe. We was still building policy, and so going forward, the window won't be near as tight for you to select your level and get that turned in, but this year's a pretty tight window, so that's what it is this year. Okay, thank you all for coming. If you think of other questions later, want clarification on something, feel free to reach out. Albert and John are both involved in, and Melvin, in kind of looking into this. So if you have any questions, holler at one of the board or us. Thank you for coming.